Today, I want to talk about isolation and its role as a precursor to depression. It's easy to overlook the early signs of isolating yourself and being able to recognize that you might be sliding into isolation could prevent some deeper, more extensive mental health struggles down the road. This is what I have been noticing, and I was asked by my psychiatrist last week to think about what the red flags are for me, what the signs are for impending depression. Like, how do I know? How do I feel before I start sliding downhill? Um, I had a lot of episodes where I was going up and down. When I think back to right before I started seeing my psychiatrist, as you all have been listening, and I had good days and bad days, and then there was I just started sliding. It started to feel like I was sliding downhill. So her and I had been talking about this over empathizing that I had been doing recently. We were talking about how the reason I originally sought out seeing a psychiatrist was because I was constantly thinking about death. I was constantly thinking about what is my purpose in the grand scheme of things. I was no longer living in the day and the present. No matter how much I talked about mindfulness, no matter how much I talked about meditation and these practices, I just continued to think about the whole picture. What is the whole purpose of my existence? The whole purpose of, and I would get to the point where if I'm sewing my quilt, I'm thinking, why even work on this? That's terrible. So, isolation is what came to mind for me as a red flag that is a sign that I may be having some deeper mental health struggles, that I may be headed towards a decline into depression. So I thought that this was important to think about and talk about for a podcast. So, what I'm going to talk about here are what the red flags are for isolation in my life. And isolation does not happen in an instant. It's not like one day I'm out, I'm talking to everybody, and then the next day I'm not talking to people, and I just completely stop sharing in my sobriety meetings. I stop calling people. I stop responding to texts. It happens slowly and it creeps in quietly. So here are my telltale signs that I'm starting to isolate. One is that I start declining social invitations. Initially, I find myself saying no more often. Not only am I saying no if somebody asks me something, anything, it can it cannot it can be not an invitation. It can be an my opinion on something. It can be just anything. The first thing out of my mouth is no, but, or no, and then an excuse. I'm giving excuses as to why somebody's wrong, why I can't show up, why I can't attend an event I would typically enjoy, why I can't do something that I want that I would typically want to do. So I have to think about my intentions for saying no. Am I really protecting my disability, or am I feeling sorry for myself? Am I saying no because my head is going to hurt, or am I saying no because my heart hurts? And sometimes I may be protecting my disability, or by that I mean avoiding triggers for my symptoms. And in doing so, in effect, I feel sorry for myself. That follows because I really wanted to do the thing or attend the event. And I have to be hyper aware of what's happening and talk about it freely with others. This is similar to me to early sobriety. Alcoholics like to say no. We like to make excuses, and we like to not commit to things. So one of the things that we learn in early sobriety is to say yes even when we want to say no. And this was something I had to practice, and it was amazing to actually notice. Once I started to notice how often I wanted to say no to somebody, and I had to let my mouth say yes. It happened so frequently in the beginning. Now it's automatic. It's automatic that when I think no, I say yes. And this is, of course, I'm only talking about when it comes to things like being of service, getting myself out, meeting new people, doing things that I know are beneficial to me, but I don't feel like it. That's what I'm talking about. We have to practice this self-awareness and analyze our intentions. For example, if I was invited to a happy hour when I was working, I had to run through why I was saying yes or why I was saying no before I said it. Am I saying yes because there's an opportunity for me to sneak into a corner and drink? Or am I saying no because I'm actually uncomfortable and I'm afraid I'm going to drink? Or am I saying no because I'm isolating and I'm feeling sorry for myself? It's a complex situation. It's a complex series of thoughts, and it deserves time to figure it out. It deserves that kind of self-love and pause to do what's right for yourself, and make sure that you're not putting yourself in a position that you're uncomfortable or that you're risking your sobriety. In stroke recovery and with vestibular rehabilitation, this has been a challenge for me to be able to recognize, when am I saying no because I don't feel like it, and when am I saying no because my brain is tired, and when am I saying no because I'm afraid it's going to trigger my symptoms, and excuse me, when am I saying no when I can actually say yes, but do the thing in a more controlled way, do it slower, do it for a shorter period of time. For example, saying no, I can't take a walk. Well, I can take a walk. I just have to walk slower, and I have to walk for a shorter period of time. That's a good example. Know why you're saying yes or no to social interactions, to social situations. The next sign for me that I might be isolating is that my time alone is increasing. I spend a lot of time alone now. And spending time alone is not natural for me. It's something that my mom would say I really struggled with when I was younger. I always talked about being bored. That sticks out to me as something that I complained about a lot when I was little. And that was because I was alone and I didn't know how to entertain myself. I know how to entertain myself now. But spending time alone is a departure from my usual behavior. It is a significant warning sign for me that I'm avoiding people. Seeing that I don't leave the house much right now, and I slowly start introducing activities into my life, I have recognized in the past 2 days, like sincere, it's an idea that I had been thinking about for quite some time. I think since I got sober, that's 8 years. But in the past 2 days, I've been recognizing how I can put this into practice where I reach out to others in order to support my recovery. So it wasn't as obvious to me getting sober because there's a lot of internal battles that go on when you don't want to reach out to others to build up that memory muscle to pick up the phone and call somebody in case in the future you have a desire to drink, you need to pick up the phone. So training that habit. But now I'm recognizing that I need to practice going outside of the house. I need to practice going to lunch with somebody. I need to practice walking. I need to practice going to a store, these types of things. So I'm not going to have people knocking down my door to be like, hey, I want to practice with you. It's not going to happen. I have to look out. I have to be my own biggest advocate. And I need to schedule these times. So I decided once a week, I'm going to reach out to somebody and schedule a date, if you will, and see if, there's so many people that are like, if you need anything, call me. And I never call. Well, I need something now. I need to practice being around people. I need to practice keeping eye contact. I need to practice controlling my head movements and how much I move my eyes. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is by reaching out to people and asking, will you come and, pick me up and let's go to a restaurant, or let's go to Joann's Fabrics and see if I might be able to pick out some fabric. And that's a huge symptom trigger for me to browse. So I would have to do it in a controlled manner. I'll tackle one aisle. Let's say I need to find a yellow material, a yellow cotton material. Then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to seek out going to the store, and I may ask my person who is joining me, will you find the aisle for yellow cottons? And then we'll go there, and then I will practice looking at one material and moving my eyes from one material to the next. That's practice. That's what I have to do. But again, I need to make the effort to get out of spending my time alone, increasing this time alone. So another example is a previous coworker of mine came to visit me yesterday, and I was so excited. She actually spent a lot of time with me, which was so nice, and I really enjoyed myself. And it was good practice for me to make eye contact. But what really led to that event was that I sent her a text the day before. she crossed my mind, and it was what I've been trying to do is when somebody crosses my mind, immediately send them a text or call them and say, I was thinking of you and just wanted to say that I miss you. And that's what I did. And she responded right away. She said, unbelievable. I was just thinking about you and thinking that I need to come visit you. And so that was that. The next day, she came to visit me at 8 a.m. in the morning, and we spent some time together before she started working. It was so great. So that leads me to the next red flag for isolation for me, and that is lack of communication. Texts, calls, and emails start to go unanswered. I will not respond. So a lot of times my sister will call. Hi, Sissy. My sister will call and leave me a message. And the reason why is because more often than not, I don't see that my phone is ringing. Whether it is because it's on voiceover and I don't have the settings set up correctly so it tells me that the phone is ringing, or I don't know, in the bathroom and she calls, and then I go back to doing whatever I was doing and I don't check my phone because it's on voiceover. So I forget to run my finger over top to hear if somebody called or if I missed anything, because I don't know, I check my phone less when I'm not looking at it, when I'm just depending on my ears. I suppose maybe there's a slight bit of I don't wanna. It's just there's a slight bit of irritation that I can't look at my phone. So I just am like I avoid it a little bit. So anyway, my point, I will not respond to her voicemail. That is unintentional. If my sister leaves me a voicemail or sends me a text and I don't respond to her same day, I'm isolating. So I start to sometimes feel overwhelmed by the thought of replying or interacting with someone. And that is isolation, because my normal behavior is not to feel overwhelmed by talking to somebody. I actually have a hard time shutting my mouth a lot of times. I bet you didn't guess that after all of these episodes. So, my main excuse for not interacting is that I'm too tired. And that's okay if I'm tired, if my brain is tired. It's not okay if I don't feel like it. So, my husband and I were talking again about this self awareness, about whether I'm not doing something because I need to rest or whether I'm not doing something because I don't feel like it or I'm feeling sorry for myself. And this is something that has been a challenge over the past couple months, really over the past 10 months. It has been. I do go through periods where I'm really inspired, and I'm in a period of inspiration right now, which is great. I'm talking to my psychiatrist about, hopefully this will last. And just like when you go to a psychiatrist, you start feeling better. That doesn't mean that you need to stop going. It means that what you're doing is working and you need to keep going. So, if I were to stop going to my psychiatrist, it's because I don't feel like it. And that would be the beginning of isolation. Next would be avoiding support systems. If I'm too tired, meaning I don't feel like it, I'm too lazy to go to one of my support groups, then I'm beginning to isolate. And you lifetime listeners, I've been all over support groups, whether it's sobriety groups, whether it's stroke support groups, vestibular support groups. I even had been finding a lot of comfort in reaching out to the blind and low vision community in the time period that I was really struggling to use my eyes. And I'm a little bit better now, so I'm able to do a lot more. I'm a little better, but I'm doing a lot more because I'm learning how to manage my symptoms so that I can do things in shorter periods of time. And when I start skipping support group meetings and not wanting to go to therapy sessions or forgetting to call my sponsor. I mean, seriously, sometimes I do forget. But not calling my sponsor, avoiding getting on the phone, avoiding family members and friends, that's a signal to me that I'm retreating into isolation. There are times that my family, we all have, I have a couple group chats. Sorry, I'm closing my eyes. I'm having symptoms. I have a couple group chats with my direct family members. So I have one with my brother, my sister, and my mom. I have one with my husband and my two kids. And then I have one with my brother, my sister, and my dad. I have one with just my brother, my sister. I have one with my brother, my sister, and my half brother, and all that stuff. And at times, they'll all be talking to each other, and I don't chime in. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, first and foremost, is because I have a really difficult time keeping up with long text threads, whether I'm using voiceover or I'm using my eyes. If I'm using my eyes, it requires scrolling, and that hurts my head. If I'm using my ears, it's really challenging. It's not that challenging, but it takes effort. I guess not as, you know what? It takes just as much effort to keep up using my ears as it does keep up using my eyes. Because if I'm using my ears, I have to scroll back, I have to find the beginning by moving my finger on the face of the phone, find the first text, and then listen to each text by moving my finger and then scrolling the screen and all of this while I'm not looking and keeping up with that way. Sometimes there's 20 text messages and I have to go that way. Yes, there's a way to say read my new text messages, and that's fine unless I'm on voiceover and I accidentally have already opened the text. Then I actually have to use my finger to do it. So there are challenges. There just are. So it's difficult sometimes for me to follow really long text threads. And so I don't respond until maybe at night when I pull up my text messages on my computer. Then it's easier for me to read them all because the computer doesn't hurt my head as much. I don't have to scroll as much. But there's another reason why I don't respond sometimes, and that's because I'm isolating. And they don't know the difference because I'm not going to tell them because I'm isolating. Um, so that's a red flag for me. Why am I not responding to my family? And I have to do that. I have to be that self-aware. Maybe nobody else does, but I have to, in this time, in this phase in my life and in my recovery, I have to know, why am I not responding to people? Why am I choosing this behavior? Is it because it's what's best for my symptoms? Is it what's best for my mental health? Or am I harming my mental health? Am I harming my symptoms? I have to look at that every day. I mean, all day long. And another red flag for me is being cognizant of changes in my routine, in my daily routine. So if I have a noticeable shift in my routine where I'm interacting with others and I stop interacting with others, that indicates that I'm withdrawing and I'm isolating. And the best example I have of this is every day at lunch, most days at lunch, when my husband comes up to eat lunch, we eat together. And there are days, very few and far between, but there are some that I won't go down there and eat. And there's only one reason I'm not doing that. It's not because I'm mad at him. I'm never mad at him. It's because I'm preferring to do something alone. And that tiniest behavior shift is a red flag that something is wrong with me, that I'm isolating. So, through this discussion with my psychiatrist, I've been understanding my isolation patterns and the impact that it has on my recovery progress and my mood. And my mood impacts my symptoms. It just does. I've noticed it. I noticed it in the past 10 months more than I ever did when I was working. When I had gone back to work and I was in denial, I didn't notice much of anything other than my head keeps hurting. But now I do notice how this isolation impacts everything in my life. And isolation can be particularly dangerous for those of us in recovery because it fosters an environment where negative thoughts can feed on themselves and flourish. And it's that dark place where, mold grows in dark, cold places. And that's what my dark place is, my emotional dark place is when it's left unchecked. That's where negative things grow, negative things that make you sick, make me sick, grow. It cuts me off from the very resources that offer me support and perspective and allow me to grow faster and smoother, easier. So it cuts me off from friends, families, and my recovery communities that I have been working hard at growing. So here are some strategies that I have talked to my psychiatrist about. And this is coincidentally, I wrote these down before I talked to my psychiatrist this morning. So I had a psychiatry appointment this morning, and I had planned this podcast episode prior to our conversation. And this is what's interesting. I didn't tell her that I was coming up with strategies on how to counteract my isolation. Honestly, I didn't even remember that I had come up with these until I sat down to start recording my podcast. And it turns out that the very strategies that I wrote down are the strategies that she asked me to work on this week. So I'll show you what she has provided to me. I'm just going to show it, on the camera. She has provided with me over the time that I've been working with her a couple monitoring logs. So there's one that is like a month log. Can you see it? Yeah. That shows like how much. So the activities are on the left of what I want to do. And then you record how often you do it throughout the week and how long you do it, how many times and how long, the duration. And then over each week, you record that information. And the point is really to figure out what how much how much effort are you putting into your goals? Is this really a goal? Do you have too many goals? That would be my problem. I had like 10 goals and so we just nailed down 2 goals to have for this month, which is really not something I'm used to. I'm used to 2 goals in a morning or in a day. So that's one of the logs. And then the other log is a daily monitoring. So this is, it may seem extensive. I don't fill it out for every hour, but what I'm writing down is what activity I'm doing, what is the importance of the activity. Sorry, I realized I'm not talking in the microphone. What is the importance of the activity? How much enjoyment did I get in the activity? And what is my pain level? So I adjusted the document a little bit to add a column for pain. So what this is helping me do is recognize how much time, again, each day am I putting into my goals? Or am I putting time into things that aren't my goal? Am I sneaking in? I don't think you can say that. Am I sneaking in other activities to finish more things in a day? Because I have to be really careful of that. I cannot seem to manage how much and how many things I do in one day. I'm still working on it. Longtime listeners know that I've been working at having one goal per day, and it's challenging for me. But what I haven't been great at is having one goal per week or one goal per month, like looking at it long term. So what I do is I end up having, this is my goal. Here are 3 goals for this week. And I find myself when I fill out the daily log that I'm not only doing things for all 3 of those goals, but I'm also investing time in ideas that I have, long-term ideas I have for the podcast, for example, or my blog, which I have totally been ignoring. And there I am, need to get back to. That's what I was going to say. But is that a priority? Is that a goal for this month? No, it's not. It's not a goal for this month. And I have to recognize that I only have a certain amount of time in the day to do things. And on top of that, I have chronic pain that I have to manage. So my brain just can't seem to stop. Like, it can't seem to be gentle. I like that. Remember, I like that term, that phrase, be gentle with yourself. I have a hard time slowing down. I always have, unless I drank alcohol. So it's really interesting to watch this Rachel version 3.0 in the real world, taking the real world, whatever. It's interesting to watch Rachel 3.0 functioning without a job because it's becoming more obvious to me how much how much I move mentally. In my job, that's why my boss liked me so much, because I was constantly getting things done. I was like a machine. He told me that, actually. He said, "You're like a machine." And I try to be a machine now, and I'm not a machine. I'm broken. I'm broken. I can't go as far. I can't do as much. And I have to be gentle with my machine or I'm going to break. And I did already. I did that. I tried to do the same amount. I tried to get this machine to work as hard as it did before, and I broke it. And now, over the past 10 months, I've had to work with professionals to try to fix it. And if I go too far, I'm going to break it again. So here we go. These are the strategies that my psychiatrist talked to me about today. So setting those small, achievable goals. That's exactly what I wrote down in preparation for the podcast today before I talked to my psychiatrist. So it sounds like we're on the same page. But start with something small, even smaller than what may seem small to you. Like, think about something small and then see, can I break that down even more? So my goal is to every week uh, schedule a date with somebody to go for a walk. Okay, that's my goal. Can I break that down even more? I can. Send a text or call somebody. That's the goal. And ask them if they would be interested in going for a walk. So you see, I broke it down even smaller because I need to celebrate the smallest success. The smallest success that is pulling me out of isolation is that I texted somebody. That's a big deal. When I'm isolating, I don't talk to someone, want to talk to somebody. Just sending a text is something to be celebrated. Even more, even more so than getting this big schedule together where I'm going for a walk every week. I need to recognize the small things. And those small things are going to lead to the big things. Sending a text and reaching out to somebody is going to lead to me being able to do an activity with them. Sending my text to my coworker 2 days ago was a big success for me, but probably to somebody else was small. And it led to an even bigger deal, which was she came to visit me and we spent some time together. Next would be to establish a routine. And structure can be so powerful in fighting isolation. Try to create a daily schedule, which is what I have here. Yeah? To include interacting with others, even if it's just a phone call. Still that same thing. It's so important that I talk to somebody, just one person, even just one person, and my husband doesn't count, a day. So pick up the phone and call somebody. And reach out first to people. This is something that I've mentioned before and I talked to my psychiatrist about, which is, why am I sitting around missing my kids without taking the initiative to pick up the phone and call them? Take the initiative to contact friends or loved ones, even if I don't feel like it, even if I feel like, and it's not that I don't feel like it, it's that I'm afraid that I'm bothering somebody. I know that there's so many people who feel that way. And it wasn't a big deal back when we had answering machines and we had those phones that were stuck on the wall. It wasn't a big deal to call somebody and leave a message. It was actually super amazing when we had answering machines and you could leave a message, because that wasn't always the case either. And it just, we didn't worry so much about bothering somebody because we knew we could leave a message. They don't have to answer the phone. But today, for some reason, with cell phones and how people always have them in their pocket, we feel like we are interrupting them in their daily life. And that's got to stop. We are not interrupting anybody any more than we were interrupting them in the day of landlines and answering machines. They still don't have to pick up the phone. They can call us back. We can leave a message. We still have voicemail. So reaching out is taking the initiative is a huge deal in making the first move to break the cycle of isolation. Using technology wisely. So picking up the phone instead of texting is using a cell phone wisely if you need to break the cycle of isolation. And also using technology as a lifeline, like participating in online support groups or FaceTiming so you can see somebody's face. There's a lot to that. I love when I get to FaceTime with my family. And being involved in social media communities, listening to podcasts like this, helpful, encouraging podcasts, if I don't say so myself, that foster positive connections and positive thoughts, which lead to positive behaviors, which leads to stopping isolation. And then finally, volunteering. Engaging in volunteer work can provide a sense of purpose and community and reduce feelings of isolation and boosting self-esteem. But I want to be clear, I can't really find a way to volunteer right now because of my symptoms. But what I have been noticing is that when I find that there's somebody suffering, that I can volunteer my time to listen to them. And it is volunteering. So when you know that somebody is suffering, somebody's grieving, somebody just needs somebody, volunteer your time to listen. Just pick up the phone. Again, pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm here for you. I'm here if you want to talk. I did that yesterday, but yeah, I didn't let the person talk. I feel really bad for that. I know that she doesn't think that I was monopolizing the conversation, but I just couldn't seem to shut my mouth. But I think it was helpful, it was helpful. And it wasn't just helpful for this person, it was really helpful for me. I was telling my psychiatrist that what it did for me was I was saying out loud what I'm doing in my program to help myself and saying out loud the value that it gives me in recovery. I was saying it for the purpose of sharing it so that the other person might find hope and might consider going to support groups or doing, some of these things. But what I found is I also gained validation that what I'm doing in my program, Rachel's program, is working and I need to keep doing it. So these volunteer opportunities, however you want to call it, picking up the phone, using technology, volunteering, whatever it is that you want to say it is, they are opportunities to help ourselves to get out of isolation and help others. Isolation is subtle when it starts, but it is very dangerous to me, to lead me into deeper states of depression. By staying vigilant and implementing these different strategies that I have been thinking through and talking to my psychiatrist about, and talking to other folks in recovery, I'm able to stay connected, and I'm protecting my mental health, and I'm sustaining my path, my recovery path, and my progress on it. Remember when I talked previously about reaching out for help not being a sign of weakness? It's a sign of courage. It's a sign of self-love. I want to save myself. And it's a step towards healing. That's what reaching out for help is. Even if you're just picking up the phone and you're crying, it's a step. It is. It doesn't feel like it is, but it's a step towards healing. It reminds me of showing up to my AA meetings and just crying. I would share and I was just ugly crying. Crying is my biggest healing activity. And I had talked to you guys about when my friend passed away, how I didn't cry unless I listened to music. Then I cried, and I cried uncontrollably. So I stopped listening to music, and that was not the answer, right? That's not the answer. So what I ended up doing, and it took me 2 years to do, was went out to a sportsplex and started running around 6 soccer fields and playing music and just blubbering crying. I mean, just disgusting crying. And that was the beginning of me actually accepting that life has to move on. I have got to keep going. And it was that exercise of it was representing everything that I was going through. I was pushing myself, pushing my body physically to move forward when I just wanted to stay still. I just wanted to go backwards. I wanted to go back in time. And I physically was representing that that is not possible by way of running forward. And it was hot outside. It was probably 95 degrees that day. And I just kept running. And I was having a hard time, breathing because I was crying so hard. But I just kept doing it. I ran probably longer than I would have ever ran under those circumstances. I did not get heat stroke. So be careful if you're trying to do this same deal. But I've talked about so many times how doing things physically to represent how I need to heal emotionally, mentally, what I need to do to make progress emotionally and physically helps me to do it. So the more that I share about it on the podcast, the more instances I find that I can share with you about how I've done something physically to represent what I needed to do emotionally. And the God box is an example. The running my way through grief is another example. And I had thought of another one today, but I can't remember what it is. So, as much as I'm always talking about reaching out to others to help ourselves, I can't ignore the fact that I have to remain hyper aware of my own intentions in order for me to benefit from my behaviors. So I need to understand, why am I saying no and why am I saying yes? Why am I not picking up the phone and talking to somebody? Is it because I'm afraid that it's going to trigger my head, or is it because I'm isolating myself? Am I not going to this event because it's going to trigger my head, or am I isolating myself? So all of these things that I talked about today, it's really looking at my intentions. Why am I doing something, to understand if it's for the right reasons, if it's in the name of my recovery or it's not. So thank you so much for tuning in today to the Recovery Daily Podcast. Call somebody. Like right now, I'll be done in just a second. So when you hear the outro music, just hit stop and pick up the phone and call somebody. It doesn't matter who you call, just pick up the phone and call somebody. It does so much for somebody's entire day. It does. It does for me. And I've heard people say that to me, that this has made my whole day. I just needed to talk to somebody. And it's only taken me 8 years to see that. So I want to just keep the conversation going about this and keep supporting each other. So again, thank you so much for listening.